Well, good afternoon, listeners. You're listening to Lament of Hope podcast, and I'm your host, Danielle Richardson. And I'm very excited and happy to connect with Lynn Hilary. I have followed her career since she was with Celtic Women, but one thing that always stuck out to me about her in particular was that she just had a very soothing voice. I think one of my favorite melodies that she's ever done, it's an older one now, but it's called Melody of Life. And um I've always found it just a very calming song. Her music is beautiful. I just highly encourage you to look it up if you haven't. She was with Celtic Women, she was with Riverdance. She's done several feature solo performances with several different artists. And she actually just recently came out with a book of poetry as well. So she does poetry, she does music, as well as working on upgrading a recent album. Lynn, just before we start, I know you were talking about Saturn's Return. Can you talk about, I know you published that already, that album, but you are wanting to redo it, you said?
Yeah, I released it probably about 12 years ago. And yeah, I just thought I actually listened to some of the songs recently after a few years and I thought, oh, they're nice songs. And I thought I'm gonna just give it another maybe a lick of paint. And also when I uploaded it to streaming platforms too quiet. So actually I needed to re-upload it anyway to the proper volume. And so I thought, why not just give it another cover? Just almost give it a fresh energy. Do you know, it's like give it my attention because I think any creative endeavor needs energy in every way. That's what marketing is, really, isn't it? Just attention.
Well, I was going to ask you, because now you're more independent artist. Do you enjoy that more than being part of some group? Or do you find it harder?
Um, I would say there's positives and negatives to both, but I've always enjoyed being part of a group. I would say my natural default would be I prefer being in a group. I love being part of my family. I loved being part of Celtic Woman. I loved the poetry book because it was a collaboration, and I was always part of girl groups. So I think this is good for me to do things on my own because I tend, when I'm in a group, to just fall back. I'll be like, oh, whatever you guys want, I won't take the lead. It's not really in my nature. So it's probably good for me to do things as a solo artist because I do have good ideas and I don't always have the confidence in them. So when I do things on my own, I tend to, it's good muscle to use. So, but I would love to work in a band again one day. That's sort of a dream I have to get a band going. Maybe soon in the future. Who knows? I'll manifest it.
Like tour or stay local with the band?
I think I'd like to do some nice recordings and then, yeah, just work. I'd love it to be about, creating nice music with a bunch of people I think it would be about who have the same mindset as I do, to make really nice music and then possibly local tours. Yeah, I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of flying. I'm a bit afraid of flying. And I love being home. Now that I'm back in Ireland, I'm so happy. And I live in a lovely natural setting now. So I've never had cabin fever for traveling. I'm not really a big fan of traveling. I like being at home. So, yeah, who knows? Who knows? God, I've just realized how it's so hot today. I've gone all red because we're not used to the heat in this country and we have a heat wave for the last 2 days. And we're all like, what do we do with ourselves when it's warm? Because this country isn't set up for heat, it's set up for cold.
Well, I'm in Virginia and we're going through humidity too.
Uh,
So that's why I have my window open, but it's funny, we have a fire escape right outside of the window, so it blocks the air. It's
oh,
like you have the window. It gives the impression of air coming in, but I'm
right.
not quite sure there's really any coming in.
Convince yourself there's air coming in, yeah.
But I want to ask you one thing I love about your music, and this is not something, of Celtic Women, I noticed it too a little bit, but your music is very thought-provoking and soft and soulful. It's like it's a very different style of music. I mean, you still have a very classical voice, but your songs just seem more thought-provoking and more inward and intimate kind of
Mm.
songs. And so I wondered, when you're mentioning that you do love home and that you love to um, be in your own space and create that space and you have your own mindset for your work, what is your mindset for your work? When you're creating music, are you purposely creating music that you want people to just intimately listen to? Because it just seems like it's you and the music, and then the listener gets to come in and kind of hear this interaction you're having with the music. At least that's just what it seems like when I'm listening to it.
Yeah, I think that I've always been a thinker and a dreamer. And, even when I was young, when I would, when we'd have prose exercises or essay exercises, I never wrote stories. I always wrote very deep thinky, self-growth, pieces when I was, 17. And sometimes I'd read them going, what is going on in my head? Because I had so much going on. And yeah, I do think a lot, and I do have a lot of, I suppose I can say it now, I'm a really creative person, but with that comes so much chaos.
Yeah.
Um, and I've always lacked the structure. So yeah, it's really kind of, when you create something or a song, and I get to capture that little moment, and it is probably a little bit of you might say a selfish thing, a creative act, because it's all about me and my feelings. But yeah, I suppose the whole point is that you reach out and hope that that connects with someone else. And that's why, so there's been a few times when I've posted on social media, for example, I've been a bit honest. Maybe I've posted something about a struggle or a pain, and I always do it to share. I do it almost as a work of art, to say, here's my pain, here, have a look inside my soul, and
Mm.
never sharing it to be, oh, look at me and I'm suffering. I hope I do it because I love Elizabeth Gilbert, and the way she always says she gives permission slips out to people to feel and to create. And so when people come back, a few people will come back and get it confused, and they'll say, oh, are you okay? Is there something wrong? Are you struggling? Need help? And I'll be like, no, I'm fine. I'm just sharing an emotion. It's actually gone now. I felt it, 20 minutes ago. The emotion's long past. I was just sharing it because I wanted to be a bit more honest, because I think social media can be a little bit phony, and people are putting on the polished facade. And I think we're all a bit sick of that now, aren't we? I think we all want a bit
Yeah.
more honest. But it's how to do it. It's a really hard balance. You don't want to be whinging and moaning, but you don't want to be kind of false either. So that's a really hard line to share. And I don't know if I'm even answering your question, but yeah, it is an intimate thing, but I hope that it connects with other people, because that's what the artist that I love did for me. Like when I would listen to Karen Carpenter saying,
Yeah.
I remember almost pulling over my car one day because I just wanted to say, even though she was long past, thank you, Karen, thank you, because what she gave me was like so amazing. It was like the most amazing gift. That's what your favorite music will do for you. It'll just make you feel like someone gave you the best gift ever. So I wanted to share that and give people something. Yeah, and that's the beauty of it. You're sharing, yeah, a piece of yourself and your own thoughts and your own feelings, but you hope that people will go, yeah, me too, me too. I think that's the whole point, isn't it?
No, I agree with you. I think what's interesting though about your music is it is because there's a lot of people who write songs about real things, right? Like breakups and stuff like that. And we all relate to that, but it becomes more of a, uh, um, it's really hard to find a soulful breakup song. Usually a breakup song is pretty poppy and you find yourself bobbing along and you're like, this is great. And then you're like, wait a second, why am I bobbing along to this? This is really sad. But the way it's made is it doesn't make you really think, it just makes you move. And I
Right.
think when you find artists who are trying to say something about life, but it's actually meant to make you feel something and think, it is
Mm,
different than like just a bop, you know?
mm, I think
So
so. I
I
think so.
think like your melody of life, I wanted to ask you, like, I don't know for some reason why that in particular of your songs is always kind of stuck in my mind when I think of you. Um, when you wrote that, what was your desire with that song? Because it's very dreamy, but it's also talking about like what potentially life means, and it's also just, very soothing, and you almost feel like you're going into a different world with that song.
Okay. Wow. And I'm trying to even remember that song because it was so long ago. And I will, I can't take credit for that one. I think I wrote some of the chords and music, maybe a word or two, but it was actually written by my ex-boyfriend. The lyrics were. Um, but I would like to think that, it would have been about, I can relate to it as well because he was writing with me for me, that he would have been trying to tap into, that kind of feeling of when you're in nature and it's a bit like, what are the lyrics of that song? Da, 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 whispers
Mhm.
and kind of the mystical dark night and the magic of nature a bit, I think that song is about. And maybe we're dancing to the melody of life, like two people being together in nature, just enjoying just the magic all around them. So I think that's the vibe of the song. And I would have had to say to him, look, can we make it something that would suit me? So I think I would like to think we had a conversation about it. But yeah, that kind of vibey, fairy-like vibe, capturing the magic of nature in a song. I love that. So yeah, and I like chords, and I feel like in the same way that Joni Mitchell, she says that the chords sound like her feelings.
Hmm.
I'm a big fan of using like kind of weird chords and warm note chords that kind of have a dreamy effect. And when you play them, you kind of feel a feeling. Um, and I do think some of the music that unfortunately they're sort of feeding to people on the commercial pop charts, it's almost like they've dumbed down the chords to the most basic chords.
Yeah.
And I've seen it. I've actually been in recording studios where engineers or producers are working on songs, and they've shown me the song they made for a popular artist. I won't, one who you might know her name. And he said, we made this amazing song, and he played it. And I said, that's amazing. And apparently he said, yeah, her producers came and said, that's way too interesting and complicated. Dumb it down, make it so basic and simple because other people won't be able to hear it. People want McDonald's for the ears when it comes to the chord structure of a song now. Just basic,
Wow.
basic. I don't think that's what the public want. I don't agree. I think they belittle the public. I think the public do want these amazing sounds because when they hear them, they feel something. They just may not have the words to it. Like some of us who've been to music training, in music college who have the names of the chords, but it doesn't matter because it's the feeling of the chord that matters
Oh,
to me.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I
So
think that's why classical music has lasted so long and people still love it. It's very complicated.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and Debussy I love because his music, I think it's the Clair de Lune. That piano piece is one of
Mm.
a lot of people's favorite piece of music, by a mile because of when you listen to that song, it transports you to a feeling and a place that you cannot explain.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. That kind of whoa, you can't even explain it. It's so magic. So that's why for me, I need a bit more interesting chords. I mean, now if you're talking about meditation music where you just need it to be very basic, then that's fine. If you're trying to just come down into a very solid, grounded thing, that's a different thing. But yeah, I think the chords to me are as much of the paint palette as any other part of the song or the lyrics. So yeah, yeah, and that's not to say that a simple song can't be good. I'm not saying that either. Because I get into a
No.
lot of trouble when I talk like this.
Well, I want to ask you, do you oh, it was right in my brain, now it's gone. Well, another question I wanted to ask you before was when you were talking about nature, um, is that where you find the most rest? Like, is that the most restful place for you, is to be in nature and quiet? Or,
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm a real nature girl. I just, I moved from the city a few years ago, maybe 3 years ago. I was living in the center of the most busy part of Dublin City, like literally the most concentrated part for
hmm,
11 years. And I didn't realize it was really making me feel quite sad. And when I moved to a much more green, open area, I just feel like I came alive. I feel like, oh my God, I needed this. I'm home. And I always wanted it. I think I didn't dare to think I could afford to move out of where I was because I was a little bit stuck. So when I moved to this natural place, I don't know. Look, it is researched. There's science to back up the fact that when we get back to our natural habitat, like this
hmm,
book called Lost Connections by Johann Hari, I'm reading right now, and he says like if you take any animal out of its natural habitat, it's gonna suffer. It's gonna show symptoms of depression. And when you take, a lot of us are out of our natural habitat. We're supposed to be, with the land and in the open air with trees. They've evolved with us. It's only in the last while we've got big concrete corners everywhere we look. So it's no wonder people are a bit unhappy and they don't know why. So the chapter of that book gave me a lot of insight into why I feel this way. It's not just hippy dippy, prancing through the meadows, singing. Although I do that, but it's science too. This is where we're supposed to be, in the outdoors. Yeah, it's another indescribable feeling. Like when you listen to great music and you feel something. Sometimes you're in nature and you just feel something, and you go, "Wow, I feel something, and I don't know what it is, but I like it." You know.
do you really dance through meadows
Sure.
by yourself?
Course. Why not? I did it today. Well, I was on the beach with a friend of mine, and I wasn't quite dancing. I was squealing in the cold water, but yeah, the other day I was dancing. Now I'll look around and make sure no one's around, and then sometimes I'll just go for it and I'll put on my music and twirl. Yeah, why not?
We had a meadow close to my college, and I used to do that because I loved, um, yeah, it just, like you said, you feel very free and you just feel like known and loved for who you are being by yourself in the meadow. I don't know why. Like you said, it's interesting that you mentioned the connection to land because I'm sure that has something to do with it.
Hmm.
But I did want to ask you because I have seen on your Instagram very authentic posts. Like sometimes like just really, and you're right, there is this bandwagon of like, well, if this person's doing it, then I'll do it. And like everyone's posting the same thing and you're like, okay, at this point nobody's really feeling anything. It's just like
Right.
a trend.
Yes.
Um, but what's hard is that usually the really authentic things are not going to get out there. They just don't.
Yeah.
Because they're not commercialized enough. There's not enough money for them. There's not enough um I think, like you said, people do crave it, but you have to dig to find it. And so, what kind of made you want to be more authentic with not just your Instagram post, but in your life? Like, was there a time when that was a switch for you, or have you always been that way, where you really wanted people to know this is how I'm feeling, and I want you to be able to come in and see that because it's vulnerable, and I haven't
Yeah.
met a lot of people who like want to do that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think it's a great question. I think I couldn't be any other way. And any time I try to put on a facade, like I'm such a bad actress, I can't really do it anyway. I'm not really very good at chit chat. I'll always try to get a bit more real with people. But there's nothing wrong with talking about the weather too, but as an icebreaker. Um, but I think I grew up in a very authentic family. Like, I have a sister with special needs. She has she has Down syndrome, and it's quite, well, severe, I suppose. And so we kind of grew up with her just be like, I don't know if you know any people with Down syndrome. I don't mean to generalize, but they tend to be very authentic, and they'll just cry when they feel like it, or
Yeah.
laugh, or fall on the floor, or dance. And so she's just, I grew up with this very authentic human in my life. She just does whatever she feels. If she needs to have a big cry, no matter where she is, in the middle of the cinema, in the middle of the theater, she'll just wail crying. I used to be really embarrassed by it, but now I'm like, wow, maybe she knows something we don't. She doesn't have an ego the way we do. And so I think I had that growing up. She was just very authentic. And my dad is a very authentic person too. I've watched him with his friends. He doesn't play any games. Like he never, had a fancy car. He was just who he was. He is, sorry, he's still alive. And he's just a really authentic person. There's no airs and graces with my dad. And I love that more and more. And I aim to be more and more like that. And I think the reason people aren't more authentic is because they're scared and they've created this persona to protect themselves and because all their friends are doing it. So yeah, I just think I feel much happier being myself. And I think I realized I had a lot of anxiety in the previous years, and I still struggle with it. But I think it's down to my anxiety is high when I'm trying to be something I'm not. It's almost like my real self won't let me, and it starts to get like it's like the facade comes and the real me is like, no, get out of the way. We want to be real, And so there's this battle going on sometimes because, of course, we have to play the game a little bit. I think it's a matter of honoring all sides of yourself and being as authentic as you feel safe to be, because it's not safe. Like I've been authentic in the past and gotten in a lot of trouble. I've spoken up to bosses and gotten fired. I've spoken up to friends who then won't speak to me anymore. Like
Hmm.
lots of, it's not easy. It's not easy to be authentic, but I guess it's my little vow to myself. I want to be as authentic as I can. So I think it's a worthwhile thing to do. I'm definitely happier in myself when I try to be authentic. Yeah.
Is there, is there something, because, obviously I know it's personal too, but do you remember for you, like, is there a very painful situation you remember when being or sharing something you felt was not reciprocated well?
God, there's loads. How would I even think of one in particular? Gosh. Oh my gosh. Um, God, that's a great question again. Well, I suppose, yeah, I'm quite used to now. It still hurts. I kind of had a situation recently where I had to speak my mind, and it caused a lot of conflict, and it's it's very painful still because I think there's a great song, Oh Caledonia, the song Caledonia, and there's a line in it. I've kissed the fellas and left them crying, stolen dreams, lost the friends that I needed losing, right?
Yes. Yeah.
That, that's a really great line because I think we should tell this to young people, especially girls, because you know the way girls can be so mean to each other in school. Like I've seen it, and people
Yeah.
like boys are mean and boys will hit you, but girls will really be manipulative. Like girls, the dark feminine in some of these girls, because it's like very conniving and insulting without, oh, I didn't say anything wrong, very, very sneaky and sly. Some girls can be, and boys too. But so I think, where was I going with that? God, I was just going into my own. Yeah, speaking up to some of these people is very scary. It's very scary. It can really shake your world, because it's conflict, isn't it? So I would say it's never easy. There's too many for me to pick out one, but I do tend to stand up for what's right. But I generally, you're going to probably lose someone, or you're going to lose a situation, or something's going to change. And that's what people don't want. People don't want anything to change. The amount of people I've lost in my life, are like bowling pins now. It
Hmm.
doesn't get any easier, but it gets less confusing. I've just the amount of people who've left my life, because that's what happens. You stand up for your authentic self and you keep growing and changing, and people just step out like on a stage. They just exit stage left, and then new people come in, and that's how it should be. And I think if you're doing it right, you should lose a lot of people in your life. That's how it should be, I think. I think people just want to keep the same friends they've had all throughout their lives, but you might keep some, but I don't think you can't get through life without things changing all around you all the time.
Yeah. What are some things that you have not compromised on that you really believe in that maybe have been offensive to some people?
You are, your questions are amazing. Well, I suppose, God, the music, but I guess I did compromise a little bit on that because I needed to make some money.
It's honest, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But I tended to do
True.
things, but I always did things that I liked as well. God, what did I compromise on that? What did I not compromise on that offended people? Was that the question?
Yeah, like, and it could even just be things you believe about the world or just things that you believe are true that maybe you've said and someone didn't agree with you, and then that was, you
Yeah.
faced pushback on that, but that's something that you really believe in, and so it's important to you to say it.
Yeah, I guess, well, one thing that's hard is, oh, there's so many. I suppose the animal rights one, because I have strong feelings about, factory farmed meat, right? Not meat in general. I don't necessarily think that, everyone should be vegetarians or vegans, but the factory farmed meat where the animals are kept in these little cages.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Have a problem with that. And I tell people, and nobody likes to hear it. People hate it. And of course they do. I get it, because the truth is nobody wants to eat. Nobody's okay with it. Everyone's just like, just pretend it's not happening. And actually, this country is a great country to eat some meat for those people because there's a lot of free range meat. Now, obviously, I don't love the idea, but it's so much better than a lot of the stuff out there. We've got our cows outside and our sheep. And there's a lot of free range eggs and free range chickens for
Yeah.
meat. But the vegans even get mad at me. I've had worse arguments with vegans than I have with meat eaters because the vegans are get so angry, and they're right, but you just can't. If you fight someone on it and point out what they're doing wrong, they're just going to double down, aren't they? And so I've kind of learned to keep my opinions to myself in general, unless I just can't hold back. But I've learned that the hard way. I remember when I first became a vegetarian, I was so on my high horse. And I would go around telling everybody, hey, guess what? You shouldn't eat meat. I thought everybody would just join me because I had such an awakening about it. Just how egotistical I was. And one girl once she said, shut up. She said, stop it. Stop telling me what to do. I'll do what I want. And I kind of was grateful to her because she was absolutely right. You can't go around judging anybody. No matter how strong your convictions are, you have to let people get there on their own.
Hmm.
So I try to think what I think and share it only when necessary. And the same was true of some of the great experiences I had in some of the wellness groups, some of the retreats I did. I've had like these amazing experiences, and I would call them spiritual, but I came home once and I learned a very good lesson because I was sharing to everyone, oh, you need to do breath work and you need to try mindfulness and angel work and all this stuff. And eventually one woman said to me, you're scaring me. I don't know what you're doing, but it's a bit culty and I don't like it. And I thought, okay,
Hmm.
thank you. I realized I've gone too far. And so I think you have to, again, it's that authenticity thing. Because if you're just sharing everything with everyone, you can get, you are leaving yourself open to getting in trouble. You can leave yourself too open. So you do have to keep some protection too. You do. So it's finding the line, and that's a really hard line, and you just kind of have to feel it where that line is. You kind of just have to sense it. It's like having a conversation with someone. It's all about feeling someone's boundaries, isn't it?
Yeah.
Using sweetie.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, it's such a great question. I don't know if I've answered it properly, but
No, yeah, you do. And I think I mean, I've definitely had those too, where I've had people say, I'm not comfortable talking about that. Or, I guess I've learned over time that my opinion, even if I believe it's right, or if it is, like you said, you can't make someone think the way you do. And so trying that tactic of, this is the way to do it, it doesn't work. I don't think it's ever worked with anyone I've talked to. It's mostly, if you get to know people, you have a conversation, relationship, you show them you care, then you can start to have discussions on things where you can have, okay, what do you think about this? And well, this is my experience, and then they can share you theirs, which gives you a deeper understanding of where they're coming from, which can help you
yeah.
understand why they think the way they do, you
Mhm.
know? Um, it But going off of when you did mention the spiritual, do you, what does that look like for you? Like when you say spiritual, is it a religion for you? Is it I've spoken to some musicians where it's more of a consciousness that they enter, and they say, there's like a universe, and they believe the universe interacts with them, but there's not really a name for it. What is for you, like, what does a spiritual mean to you?
God, you're really asking the hard questions. And I mean, obviously, I don't know for sure, but I was blessed with a mother who's very God, fearing and spiritual, and a brother who's like science nerd and everything needs a fact and show me the research. And so I'm really glad I had those two because I feel like I'm kind of in the middle. Probably a little bit more hippy dippy on this side, but I always hear my brother's voice saying, that's nonsense. You show me the research. I need proof. And I like that because I don't want to go too far over here. I've met some of those people and it's almost like they disconnect from the rest of us. So I do like to keep in the middle. But I think I love this. And a lot of the poems are actually about this very thing. It's bridging what you might call heaven and earth, bridging the heart and mind, bridging body and soul, because I mean, we don't know what happens. Nobody, I don't think anyone could say for sure what God is or isn't. I think it's so funny. Someone said, actually, Johann Hari, who wrote the book, he's like, I'm an atheist. And I was like, wow, it's amazing that he's like, how do you know there's no God? Like, we don't know. Like, we don't know there is, but we don't know there isn't. How can anyone know for sure? When you look up to the night sky, how can you possibly think that there's not a higher intelligence? And when you think of like what our bodies and our eyes and our senses and how this amazing like human works, like I just find it very hard to think that there's not some kind of higher intelligence there. And for a creative, mad person like myself, it really helps me when I'm stuck to turn to like well, it might be God maybe and go, I don't know, but just I trust in something else here because I don't know. And the wellness stuff has given me a language that has helped me as a creative person because the world that we kind of grew up in and we're schooled in is like logic, facts, sums, mathematics, get a job, hit your
Mm.
milestones, do all these things. And I wasn't like that. I was a very, very creative, chaotic person. So the language I got from the wellness work, things like alignment, connection, groundedness, just gave me a language that I could understand because the world of creativity isn't logical at all. So if you want to be creative, you kind of have to let go and go into this liminal space of you don't know, your brain doesn't know. So for example, in a songwriting workshop they did a brilliant exercise a creativity workshop where you just have to get a piece of paper and just force yourself to write nonsense. And it's really hard exercise because for a logical brained person, which I actually am quite logical, it's a really difficult exercise because I'm like, well, it has to make sense. It
Yeah.
has to flow. It has to, people will laugh at me, but you force yourself to do it. And all of a sudden, this voice appears out of nothing. And there's your creative voice, but you can only get to it when you put the logical brain away, which for a logical
Hmm.
person who would have gotten in trouble in school if you're getting your sums wrong, to open that door is very, very scary. It's
Yeah.
really so. I loved that exercise, and I would do that. If I was me and my friend are doing sort of groups for movement and singing and creativity, and that's one of the exercises that I'm going to do with people, just to try and open creative doors. I think is so important. I've
So
forgotten what
you're
question.
saying people just write anything and then eventually it becomes coherent on its own?
Well, or you get little snatches of something, and
Okay.
yeah, you might get two voices or two words or three words come true, and all of a sudden that you didn't feel like you wrote.
Hmm.
So have you ever made up a song for a child, a
Yeah.
nonsense song for a child, and all of a sudden a line came out that made perfect sense, and you're like,
Yeah, that's true.
that. That's your creative door opening. That there's a daisy on the ground and it's coming up into my hand, and the daisy is, whatever, just nonsense. And let yourself make up just nonsense. And all of a sudden, it'll start to make sense, which is the magic of the creative fairies. Is if you let them, they're going to create some amazing things through you, and it's just about letting those doors open. So it's fun, yeah, but it's hard.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, and as you said, you want something that is also after when you're in that creative stage and then you want to actually make something too that people will listen to. I mean, it's all hard work. Is it hard for you at times? Like, do you ever, because sometimes I struggle with this. I do a lot. Like there's a lot of podcasts. People do their own type of thing. A lot of podcasters have a really great personality, that like they're very loud or they've got some sort of gimmick that makes them very interesting. So then they have a very large following. But, I can't make myself be that. I'm a much more reflective person. I like the other person. I like to get to know them. So the personality of the podcast isn't me. And
Mm.
so I've struggled with, okay, I don't know if I'll ever get to the point where I'm gonna have this many people, who are listening to this, but I think it's important, so I'm gonna do it. But then you've got that turmoil of like, well, you also can feel envious, and I do at times of like these other people where I'll be like, but they're not even saying anything nearly I think is important, but there they are getting all of this following, doing all these amazing things, getting to live their dreams, all this stuff. As an artist, like, do you ever struggle with that where you're like, okay, well, this is my niche. This is what I love. This is true to me. But also, it's not, Beyonce or Taylor Swift or anything like that. It's not there's something wrong with them. It's just that's not your type of music. That's not your type of personality. That's not where you're at. Does that ever bother you, or are you content with where you are?
Yeah, with my kind of niche.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also the fact that also like personality wise too, and I would even think, I mean, and maybe not, I don't know, but like worldview wise, you see it seems different. Like there's certain ways you would go that I don't think would overlap.
Mm, mm. Yeah, again, a great loaded question. And by the way, I really love your aura and what you put across. I have these flashes, and I just saw you being very successful, by the way. I just saw it in my mind's eye because
Oh,
you're
thank you.
that calm thing is you, and it's the reflective thing. It is you. And I think it's about embracing the things that, well, I'm not going to be that, but I am this. And then the things that you are, they just grow, and there's a home for those things. But yeah, I've learned that one of the most useful, I'm always going on about this, but one of the most useful emotions is envy. And it's the most horrible emotion. But I had a real change of heart about it. because I used to be so jealous of the most random things. And I realized it's actually because you want something, and this person has something similar to what you want. But what you want and what your special thing is so unique, and it's always, I think it's just better if we let it be what it is, what it wants to be. It's always going to be better than we can possibly imagine. I believe that. But yeah, I mean, if we shoehorn ourselves into these tiny expectations, then like, how could we possibly, like, we can't imagine how things could be. Like, for example, I'm getting a bit older, and that I could see that as a really bad thing. Oh, my career's over. Oh, I'm going to start looking different, and my voice won't be. Or I could say, well, that could be a really positive thing. I could be somebody who's releasing music who's a bit older, and people might love that. Do you know? So it could be negative or it could be positive. Who am I to decide? My only job is to just try and do the best I can. And I think the job that we all have these days is to try and choose a more positive spin, because like we're just being fed so much negativity all the time. And
Yeah, it's true.
yeah, good friends of mine, like I will not have certain conversations. I will walk away. Like if people are insisting, "Did you hear this? And this is what's going to happen. Oh, it's terrible." I will give them like three chances. I'll say, "I don't want to talk about this. Stop it. I don't want to talk about it." And if they keep doing it, I have to limit my access to them. And I'll tell them, if they're a good friend, I'll say, "I have to hang out with you less because you won't shut up about this thing, and you're a broken record." And
Wow, good for you.
and sometimes people go, yeah, and other times I don't see them as much, because I'm really sensitive and I get really upset very easily. Like I'm a, as Elizabeth Gilbert says, a permeable membrane, and I'm a exposed wire, so I get upset very easily. So I just have to be careful. I can't watch scary movies. I can't watch action movies. I can't watch rugby because I'm too afraid when the players bang into each other that they'll be hurt.
Yeah, I understand.
Be upset. So yeah. So yeah. Has that answered your question a bit, or kind of?
Yeah, no, I think, and I'm just gonna put this in other words, just because I think if people hear you say you're upset easily, they might think you're easily offended. I think it's more of what you mean to say. What you're trying to say is that you have a sensitive heart, and so if someone's very negative all the
Hmm.
time, you're gonna start taking that on. And then if
Yeah.
someone is, when you were talking about, you know, action violence, it affects you that it causes an emotional reaction. I think that's what you're, because I don't, I wanted to clarify that because I don't think you mean that you're like easily offended. I think it's more of you just, you
Yeah.
really are careful about what kind of, what you're putting in, that you're
Yeah.
dwelling on. Because I can understand, because even like, I was watching a film last night with my husband about war. And something that's been very hard for me over the years, and I've become pretty accustomed to it, which is I think sad, my own fault, I suppose. Um, you watch a lot of violence in movies and you're just like, yeah,
Mm.
and then the movie ends and you're like, yeah, that was a good story, blah blah blah. And then we actually watched a movie that was just some man's memories of war, actual war that he had been in, and it ended, and you realized that wasn't a great story. Like all it was people were dying
Yeah.
and waiting and then dying and then waiting. But you're like, that's what actual war is.
Right.
So then you step back from it, and I'm like, so why do I enjoy? Why is it that when I watch it in a superhero movie, I like it? But when it's actually the real thing, it seems so like it's just so sad and life is gone and someone's gone in an instant, they're whether it be whatever, they're just gone. Like a life just ended that quick.
Mm.
But and because I can understand, and I think that that's admirable that you don't like watching that, because I think I've become desensitized to it. But then last night I was reminded, oh, this is actually what violence is. So if we're going to take it out of the glorified Hollywood look,
Hmm.
It is actually life ending, which is sad regardless. So I definitely understand that. I also cry too a lot when it's really weird, but I'll be watching a movie and like an animal will be crossing the road and I'll be praying like, Lord, please let the animal get across. And like the animal's not even getting, And
Yeah.
I'm like, please don't let the goose die.
I know, I know. And you're absolutely right. I think we have become desensitized. And that's why, like, okay, what's coming to me now is that, when you move, when you say go out in nature, actually, you almost have to come down. So, say if you're in a nightclub and the noise is really loud and you go outside, your ears are ringing. It takes a while for yourself to kind of settle down and be able to hear normal sounds again. I think that's kind of how we've become now, even to small, subtle joys and subtle beauty. We've gotten it all flashing in our faces the whole time and loud noises. We've lost the ability to see the subtle beauties. And that's why it takes a lot of coming down.
Hmm.
Like I try to meditate, I try it every day, and every day it's still just wheels spinning. But it's because I'm still coming down from that 11 years living in the city and being on tour and just I'm still coming down. I am still not settled in myself at all. But I have moments where I feel it and I'm like, now I know what I'm aiming for. And yeah, unfortunately, a lot of kids are exposed to flash, flash, flash and violence and oh, your eyelashes aren't big enough. Let's get bigger eyelashes. Have you seen the girls? Like,
Yes.
how big can they get? And the bigger lips and everything else. And it's like, people have lost the ability to see the beauty in something really, natural maybe. And what were you saying about the movies? But yeah, on the other hand, people have said to me, look, you should be aware of the darkness in the world. And then again, just to give you the flip side of that, the way a lot of women are obsessed with the murder mysteries on TV, I have a sense that there might be something healthy to that, in that we all have that kind of darkness, the seed of darkness inside. Like, I'm a big Star Trek fan, and there was this episode where Captain Picard, he was really humbled, and the end he said something like, we all carry that seed of darkness in us, like we're all capable of terrible
Yeah.
things. He's
Yeah.
right. I think if we acknowledge that, we're going to be a lot less judgmental against people who do terrible things, because given the situation, we might do it too. And so maybe some of these awful films, or sorry, not awful, but like action films about war and about murder, maybe that's an outlet for that darkness that we need. Like, my mom is Julie Andrews. She's such a beautiful, soft lamb, and she watches murder mysteries. So I don't know. I can't square that circle. But so I guess there's a lot in that. Yeah. I don't really know the answer to that one, but
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think it's hard though now though, because life is starting to become very much like that. I think, I mean, I don't want to make a sweeping statement because I didn't live in the 1800s, but life was more simple in the sense of you lived, you did this, and you did this, and you saw this, and you got to, like you said, be out in the land and things like that, and then you died. And like that was just part of life. That was just how life went. And now we have just so many mental health struggles with kids. We have so many broken homes. It's like we're living the movies now. Like when you're watching the movies, they're no longer movies anymore. You can relate to that so much now because our world is so broken. I think it's more broken than it was then. And so in that way, I think it's sad. It's like I was talking to someone in an interview and she said, I don't like watching those movies because I live them. So I don't see why I need to watch it. And I was like, well, I understand. It's hard it's like, why do I want to see violence if I already live in a violent world?
Yeah. My God.
Good
God love.
point, you know?
Absolutely, you're right. I think we've all seen quite a lot, unfortunately. If people are honest, I think that most people have had some pretty horrific experiences in their lives, or even subtler ones that are almost as upsetting, Like, an emotional abuse can be There's times when I would have preferred a slap in the face that to some of the emotional abuse I got. So yeah, I mean, I think you're right, we've all experienced it, but I think it's all the more reason why we can, not to sound hippie, but heal together. And I think that's the job of the artist. I really do. One of the jobs of the artist is to, feel the pain. I did write a good quote, which I really like for my vocal groups now, which is, what is it? Like music can help, because I want to do healing work through the voice. And I think it was like music can help us open the doors to our pain, which is what music does. It helps us feel pain. And then singing can help us walk through them. I think it was something like
Ah,
that. So something like that. Yeah, I'm working on it. But I think there's so much pain and there's so much suffering. But I do think I like to think that we're moving on, in that I find nowadays people are a lot more open about, their pain, or people will cry. I know more of my friends now will kind of cry, and it's not a big deal, as it may be used, as it would have been. I remember the first time I did a mindfulness group. I was sent for an 8-week course, I think, of mindfulness, and I cried on the last day. I couldn't help it. It was a really good group, actually, and very helpful. And I cried, and I was mortified. I was so embarrassed because I didn't want to cry, but I couldn't help it. And I'd say for years, every time I thought of it, I was so embarrassed that I couldn't even handle it. I wanted to just the ground to open me up. And now I will cry, no problem. I'll cry for you right now, and
yeah.
I'm fine. It's not a big deal. So I think that's progress in me anyway. And my lovely neighbor now, she'll just cry. It's not a big deal. It's just, that's great. It's a healthy thing. My dad cries, my mom cries, my sisters cry. Like it's a lovely thing. And I think we're starting to realize now, no, there's nothing wrong with that person. In fact, if you're at the point of crying, you're probably moving something through you.
That's true. Yeah.
It's a good
Well,
thing. Yeah.
I want to ask you one more question, be respectful of your time, but is there a song you've written or even a song you've heard that you love that you think is just really you? Like when you listen to it, you're like, that's my soul. Like that is my heart. That's my heart's cry, or that is exactly who I am when you listen to that song.
One that I've written.
It could be one you've written or one you've listened to. I know you mentioned a couple of musicians earlier, maybe a song that they've written that just connects with you so much. You're like, that's my theme.
Yeah, I will use one of mine because I listened to it recently and I thought it was lovely. It's Saturn Return, the song Saturn Return. I love it. I don't think that's big-headed because I don't feel like I wrote it. I feel like it's one of the ones that I asked the creative whatever forces, little fairies. Caroline Mays calls them like muses, the creative muses. So I don't feel too weird in saying that. But I do feel like when I wrote that song, I didn't know what it was about. And then a few years later, the song made sense. So it didn't make sense at the time. And then a few
Hmm.
years later, it made sense. And the first line is suddenly seeing the colors, shine through the gray or something, the dim light of dawn. And it was about coming out of a very sad, depressed state. All of a sudden, you can see the colors again when the world was just very hopeless and gray. So I liked that as a start. And I like the line, pray though you've lost your religion. Because I've lost, a lot of people in this country kind of lost a bit of faith in the Catholic Church. But I didn't want to lose, so they threw the baby out with the bathwater, and as a phrase a lot of people use about, losing God, even though you've lost your religion. But I never wanted to stop praying, even though I didn't know who I was praying to anymore because I kind of lost the structure. I thought it was important advice that you can still pray even though you don't have your religion anymore.
Hmm.
So I thought that was a good line. I was quite proud of that line. So I like that song, and I love it was I. I hired the best guitar player in the world to play that song, and like again, it was meant to be because for some reason he didn't do the rhythm the way I wanted it, right? And this is the best guitarist in the world, so I played the guitar on the track. And I don't know how I did it because I hadn't practiced it. I didn't even know if I could. but it was just the rhythm. It was like this very steady chugging, and I wanted it just that right rhythm. And it's, Miles Duran did the most beautiful. I said to him, I said, would you play piano the same way that planets would swirl in in the sky in the universe? And he goes, okay, but he did it. It sounds like, swirling planets. So yeah, I like that song. I do. I like it. It's a
I
nice
think
song.
that's good. I spoke to a musician once and she said, I don't think there's any work I can tell you that I'm very proud of. And I thought that was
Oh,
kind of sad because like I thought the music was beautiful, but she
mm,
herself didn't think that there was any song that she was particularly proud of. Um,
wow. It could be a confidence thing because a few years ago I wouldn't have been proud of those songs. But it would have been a false humility. So maybe she is proud and she's afraid to say it. I don't know. Or maybe she hasn't really, yeah, maybe she hasn't connected with them fully yet. But
I guess
yeah,
you can have a mindfulness session and she can come.
yes, to my group. Yeah.
Well, Lynn, it's been such a gift. I loved meeting you, and I'm so excited for all your new music. And
Oh, thank you.
I'm very glad you wrote the poetry book. I hope you will continue to expand and do new things. And I really hope this gave people just a picture of who you are. And again, if you have not listened to Lynn Hilary's music, please Google her. I will have a link to her website. Listen to her music, it's very beautiful.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, I hope you have a good night.
Yes, I'm gonna cool down. Look how red I am. My God. Get out in the air now. Whew.
All right. Bye, Lynn. Thank
So
you.
much. Thank you.